Hello and welcome to the Managing Android Devices in Education video series. This is Module 2, Management Options for Personal Devices. Let's take a closer look at the management options for personal or BYOD Android devices. Starting with app protection policies without enrollment. This management option is all about protecting company data at the application level. Users download and install applications directly from the Google Play Store that are enabled for app protection policies, and when they sign into those applications with their work or school account, it applies the application protection policies that are assigned to them and the applications that they're trying to use. It is fairly lightweight, since it does not require the additional steps to enroll the device into mobile device management. Meet Craig Bean. He's a staff member at Ivory School, and he wants to use his personal device to access company resources. He goes into the Google Play Store and installs the apps that he plans to use, such as Outlook, Teams, and Office. And as soon as he signs into Outlook with his work or school account, he's asked to configure a PIN before he can get access to his email to protect the company data on his device. As we discussed in Module 1, the company portal must be installed on the device as a broker app to enable application protection policies, but there's no need to sign in or even launch the company portal app at all. Admins at the Ivory schools can also remove company data within the mobile applications in the event that Craig loses his phone or even has his phone stolen. Craig is very pleased that he's able to get productive securely right from his personal device. Let's take a look at Craig's experience using a managed app from his personal device. Craig installed the Teams app from the Google Play Store. Once he launches the application, he's prompted to log in using his work or school account. He is then presented with the usual first launch setup experience for Teams. As a result of the enforced app protection policy, Craig is provided with additional security requirements where he's asked to set up a PIN. Once completed, Craig is now ready to connect with his teams using his personal device. Let's shift our focus to the management option for personal Android devices using Mobile Device Management, or MDM. With Android Enterprise personally owned with Work Profile, the Work and Personal Profile app data are isolated by the Android operating system to ensure privacy. Device management is confined to the Work Profile only, and Work apps are represented with a briefcase icon. Meet Daisy Todd. She's a teacher at the Ivory School, and she wants to use her personal device to access school resources. She downloads the company portal from the Google Play Store and enrolls her device into Intune. She immediately gets several work applications pushed down to her device, which can be easily distinguished from her personal apps by the briefcase icon. Admins at the Ivory schools can remove only the work profile and associated work data from Daisy's device if she no longer needs to access school resources without impacting any of her personal data or applications on her personal device. Daisy is happy to be able to use her personal device to help her get organized. Let's take a look at Daisy's experience accessing school resources from her personal device using Mobile Device Management, or MDM. Daisy starts the process by going to the Google Play Store, searching for Intune Company Portal. Once the app is installed, she launches the application and she'll provide her work or school account to begin the process. The enrollment process has three main stages: creating the work profile, activating your profile. This is where the registration of the device into mobile device management will happen. And the final stage is updating device settings. This is where the apps and policies will be evaluated so it can flow down to the device. The first part is now complete. It's going to proceed with the device registration portion of the process. If a category is configured in your tenant, you'll also be asked to configure a category. All the steps are now complete. She's provided with a small guidance on how the work profile works. And now it's just a matter of waiting for the applications to flow down into the device. As you can see, they're slowly trickling in. And soon she'll have all of the apps that have been targeted to her personal device. And as you access all of the apps on the device, you can clearly see that there is a separation between personal and work applications. And Daisy also has the option to toggle the work profile on and off. We have seen the end user experience for using managed apps, as well as accessing corporate resources with mobile device management, or MDM. We'll now take a look at the configuration steps for enabling these management experiences for personal devices. In this walkthrough, we'll cover creating an app protection policy for the managed app scenario, creating a device restriction policy for devices enrolled with personally enabled with work profile enrollment option, and finally, we'll deploy a managed Google Play app for the devices enrolled with work profile. We're going to start the configuration process by going to the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center portal. And the first step will be to configure an app protection policy for the Teams app. For that, we're going to go to Apps, App Protection Policies, Create Policy, and choose the Android platform. And give this policy a name. And now we have to decide what device types will be receiving this policy. It could be devices that are enrolled to Intune or devices that are not enrolled, or both. In our case, we're going to go ahead and select both. We'll then have to decide what apps will have this policy enforced. So we're going to go select Public Apps and choose the Microsoft Teams app. Next, we have to define the settings that are going to be configured for this policy. There are several settings here, so we're just going to highlight a few of them. First, sending ARC data to other apps can be configured to occur for all apps, which is the default setting, or you can configure to none or policy managed apps. So we're going to head for this case to choose policy managed apps. Next, under restrict, cut, copy, and paste between other apps, you can also choose different settings. For example, you can select it blocked, policy managed apps with paste in. So we're going to go ahead and select policy managed apps. We'll move forward. You can now define the access requirements for this policy. Very much like the example we saw when Craig tried to access Outlook and was asked to configure a PIN, the default settings will allow you to have that specific behavior. So we're going to head and accept the default for this policy. Next, you can also define some app conditions for this policy. The default settings include number of maximum attempts before you have to reset your PIN, and grace period before the device has to check in to be able to either block access or potentially wipe data. So move forward. We don't need to set any scope tags at the moment. Move forward with assignments. And for this, we're going to add the I4E teacher group. We'll move forward. We just review to make sure that all of the settings that we need to configure is here, which looks good. All we have to do now is select Create. And now Teams should be able to receive this app protection policy on Android devices that attempt to access this application. This first part is now complete. So let's work on creating a device restriction policy for devices enrolled with Android Enterprise, personally owned with work profile. For that, we're going to go to Devices, Android, Configuration Profiles, Create Profile. On the platform, we're going to choose Android Enterprise. For profile type, you're going to see that there are different policy types available for the different Android Enterprise enrollment methods. For example, fully managed, dedicated, and corporate-owned work profile has all these policies available. For personally owned work profile, you have these sets of policies that are also available. So in our case, we want to configure device restrictions for personally owned work profile. We'll select Create, we'll give it a name. These are all the different settings that can be configured for work profile. Let's take a look at a few of them. Under Work Profile Settings, you're going to see that copy and paste between work and personal profiles is set to block automatically, so we'll keep that. We can also change screen capture to block from not configured. And finally, we can also choose to block the camera if we need to. Let's take a look at a different setting. For example, password. We may choose the password length to be something different than 4, and we choose that to be 6, for example. And we also want to change the number of sign-in failures before wiping the device to something like 10. So move forward here. For targeting, I'm going to choose a group that I created specifically for this, which is I for E teachers. Move forward. Now we can see and confirm that all the settings that we've configured looks correct, and it does. We'll click create. And that's it. That's all that it's required to create a work profile in Intune. For the final configuration, we're going to be deploying a managed Google Play app to devices enrolled with Android Enterprise personally owned with work profile. For this, we're going to go to Apps, select Android, click on Add. Under App Type, we're going to be selecting Manage Google Play App, which is the correct app type to be deployed to devices enrolled with Android Enterprise. Click Select. We're going to be deploying Microsoft PowerPoint. We'll select the application, we'll approve for it to be synced, select all of the permissions that are asked by default. We'll select approve. We'll keep the default options to keep approved when app requests new permissions. And now we can click sync. And if the application doesn't sync right away, one of the things we can do is go to Tenant Administration, Connectors and Tokens, and under Manage Google Play, we can force a sync. And now we can go back to Apps, Android, and confirm that the application is now properly synchronized, which it is. So we select PowerPoint, and what we want to do now is click on Properties so we can change the assignment to the group that we want. We'll click on Edit, select Add Group, and we're going to target to the same group that we created for this, which is I for E, teachers. We'll click Review and Save, double check to make sure that the group was properly configured. We'll hit Save, and that's it. That's all that's needed to deploy a managed Google Play app to a device enrolled with Android Enterprise, personally owned with work profile. This is the end of Module 2, Management Options for Personal Devices. In the next module, we'll take a closer look at management options for corporate-owned devices.